2x2, 7 rows deep, and rolling up to the start-finish line. Looks like Asher going a little bit off track as the inside.
As they can. Saber making an amazing dive into turn 1, and electroshocks off. Eggful gets the move.
But MNU trying to take a move.
Big contact from 5 different punches.
Big incident with Snowdog, our leader.
As we head into town row, it's a big crash. It's a big crash between the two title contenders.
Fly across the world into Japan for our 4th Simufur Porsche Cup round. Welcome in, everyone. My name is Denak, Kalmari, joined by Wolfin and Ravenloft here in the commentary booth as we get ready for a round where rain is potentially on the horizon.
Yes, rain is due to arrive at some point during the day. It's going to very much spice things up. We are here at Okayama International Circuit. This is one of the smaller tracks for this calendar. So it's going to be a lot of closer racing and everything else. And I'm honestly excited because this will be the first time that we have these types of cars in the wet weather. And despite them having TC and ABS, it's going to make things very interesting should we get a lot of wet weather later in the day.
Wet weather always does mixing stuff regardless of if the cars having traction control or not, and this one's going to be absolutely a banger indeed. For now, we're going to be in the practice session as we see a car going sideways in turn 1. This is foreboding good things for our race, I'm pretty sure here. But yeah, yep. We do have a pretty small track, but it's also going to be a slightly smaller grid than we are expecting here. I think we're looking at about 15-ish drivers for our grid here today. But yeah, it's going to be a track that's often seen in our like local racing here. Okay, I'm international. We see that in like GR racing. We do that a lot of MX-5s there. And just also others more serious. But I feel like the Porsche Cups are going to be well suited for this track as well.
Yeah, I think the Porsche Cups are going to do just fine here, especially with this fact that we have a smaller grid for today. It's going to make things maybe a little bit more close quarters. I'm looking at the times at the moment. I mean, this is obviously only practice, so it doesn't look like the grid is too spread out. I think we're still waiting on a couple more drivers to join, which is the other thing. They should be hopefully joining shortly as we follow along now with Philip Beckevold as he's heading. I believe this is out of turn 2, going toward.
No, that is going to be the double right-hander. So Revolver.
Oh yeah, I was going to say it's Revolver. I'm sorry, the angle kind of threw me off for a second. I almost said Revolver, and then I second-guessed myself.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But yeah, one of the trickiest parts of this track is going to be that double hander of Revolver and Pirate. That's going to be followed by immediately another double hairpin of Redman and then over to the Hobbs corner here. So that's going to be a corner complex where a lot of it's going to be making or breaking your lap time here. And those are going to be your best overtaking opportunities as well alongside you see here. Also, it's going to be the turn 1 first corner complex here. Now we're going to be keeping our eye on Pelican Grant here, who is going to be one of our potential championship contenders here, because as a big update, Plasma is also known as Jordan Johnson was not able to join for this round here. So it's going to be a showdown between Philip Beckevold and Pelican Grant here potentially for the race win, unless there's going to be somebody else that's going to be contending.
You never know. You never know. We've had 3 races in TIG, and we have always said it, and we've always been wrong. Anything could happen. We've had some of the time. I almost want to say that we've had some of the.
You said that, but last time around we had Jordan Johnson winning both races. So now that Jordan Johnson's not here, I think that's going to be mixing up the pack quite a lot.
What do you mean he won both races? He didn't win the first race. Remember?
Well, I kind of count that as a win, discounting the incident that happened right at the end.
He still
but-
technically didn't win, though.
Yeah, but we take that as like a spiritual victory here. But that's like an issue for
Spiritual
last week. We're going to be
victory.
focusing our attention on this week here, where we're going to be going to Okayama. And yeah, we have a couple of minutes left on our practice. Actually, no, it has just concluded. So now it's going to be time for our qualifying. That's going to be exciting.
Yeah, qualifying is going to be very important on a track like this. It's going to be fairly hard to overtake, even with the smaller grid. The track is very tight, so not a lot of good passing opportunities. I think the ones I could think of are Atwood, maybe going into the hairpin. We'll have to wait and see as we see. Pally is the first one out on the track for qualifying. Remember, they have 20 minutes to set a time, and this will only be for the first race. On the second race, the top 10 drivers will be swapped. So the one who wins race 1 will then be 10th, and the one who comes in P10 will be in pole.
Yes, exciting indeed. And speaking of overtakes around this track here, indeed, the hairpin, as we see Palico just going down into the hairpin corner, that's going to be one of your best overtaking opportunities right after this the longest straight on the entire track here. And if you are feeling very brave, you could also hustle your way around Revolver and Piper here. The double left-hander kind of can help you just move the other car outside, but the trouble is going to be getting your car alongside the other Porsche there. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that. We're going to be now seeing Palico also getting their tires and car ready as they go for the other set of hairpins, which could be also another overtaking opportunity. And that's also going to be the risky thing, where there's going to be lots of hairpins that is going to be inviting dive bombs. But that's going to be a question for the race, because for now we're going to be heading over to our first onboard lap around the Okayama International Circuit. We're going to be seeing Palico here going down very fast on this last corner complex here. It's going to be important for yourself to get that really good exit onto this main circuit, unleashing all of that Porsche Boxster power here. Going to be looking around for that braking marker right around the 100-meter board there. They're just slamming on those brakes, just rotating the car into that first corner here. Very long spinning to get power early there, swinging all the way out wide. They're going to immediately swing right, back left over to the Williams corner. A very long sweeping left-hander here. And again, unleashing the power to this very twisty section. The most S here, left, right, left. Again, looking for that braking point, heading over to a sweeping, slightly cambered Atwood curve here, just breaking in deep, trying to get to the inside as early as possible, so you can use that camber to your advantage. Get your car exited nice and tight to that long straight here. It's going to be the longest straight of the entire track here. This is going to be a very good place for slipstreaming, for overtaking opportunities here. But Palico is going to be just looking for those braking markers there, right on the left-hand side there, slamming on those brakes here into that tight hairpin here, trying to keep it as tight on the inside as possible, not washing out too much here. Very nice and tidy from Palico here. Again, keeping it on the right side there, so they can just swing it themselves deep into that double left-hander Revolver, then to Piper here, getting a nice clean exit out all the way to the out to the curb there, but keeping it nice and within track limits here. Again, it's going to be another double hairpin here, now down into Redmond. Again, trying to keep it as left as possible so you can get yourself set up nice and tidy to that hubs corner, an even tighter radius corner down here. It's going to be down on this little small section here before we go to the Mike Knight corner here, where you're just going to be doing a slightly, maybe a dab on the brakes here before you again slam your brakes for this last corner here, again unleashing the power of that Porsche Boxster engine here. So a very nice and tight lap from Palico Grant here. That's going to be giving themselves, let's see if as they cross the finish line, it's pretty late on the straight here before they cross it. So let's have a look-see. That is going to be an open lap of a 128.557, so a pretty strong start from the
Pretty strong start.
Palico.
We're gonna have some of the other drivers coming in as well, as we see F Spirit coming in, newbie. Only about, they're still about a second behind. It's still a fairly large gap, and we still are waiting on a few more drivers to make their times. Inigo Lopez as well. As I was saying, about to say, we haven't seen Philip Beckervald, and there he is, 1/10 off of the 120, with a 120, I believe it's 8,370. So very nice. It makes things it's going to make things very tight for race one. Sarah Van Viepen, Futaku also setting their times. It looks like our top 10 is going to be, it's got a fairly large gap, but this should make things fairly interesting later in the race.
It's still just the first 5 minutes, so there's not been much time for everybody to get their tires warmed up, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. It's still early, so we'll have to wait and see where it goes, and hopefully these times will significantly improve. as we're still following along with Philip Beckerville. As he go fairly wide going out of Williams. That's not going to help them at all as they head toward the Moss S and then
I think you're
toward
gonna mistake it
Atwood.
again. We're still in Piper heading into the Redman corner.
Oh,
here.
is it Piper? Oh my God! It's so for me. It's super hard to tell from certain angles because it
Well, it's
kind of looks.
it's very simple. Where in Williams corner you turn left, in Piper you turn right. There's like a pretty distinct difference between those two corners, I'd say.
Okay, fair.
Either way, it's gonna be keeping our eye on Philip Beckerville, who is with Palico Grant, the only people who are like within those 28s. Actually, we do have another time from Neff as well within the 28s there. Now we also got another upgrade from Katie Timberbox, who got themselves at 28.999, just barely within that sub 29 barrier here. But yeah, it's looking like the top two cars are just in a different score compared to everybody else here. So it's going to be probably an uphill battle for Neff, Katie, Esper, and others here to try to get up to the top two contenders here.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a fairly hard fight, but it is, even though the top two are fairly out of reach, I'm looking at the times between the other drivers, and it's fairly close. You can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 drivers in one clump, maybe 4 or 5 in another. There's really no one out in, I'd say, no man's land that's way off the pace on their own. And that should mean that we're going to have a few fairly close fights for this race, at the very least. So that's definitely going to...
Yeah, there's quite a big margin towards the bottom of the track here, but they're still like pretty early in the qualifying here, so they are probably going to be improving their times really soon. But the top 7 here is really close indeed, from P3 all the way down into P7. There's quite a small variance here. I think it's only about 2 tenths here. We now see a Giando also entering this top 7 fight here with a... That was going to be, let me double check because I can't see the times from this broadcast coverage. It's going to be a 28.834. So very good times here. We also see an improvement from Philip Beckerwood getting themselves into the first sub 28 lap time, which has been matched by Palikui to the exact time here, if I'm not correct. Unless our timing tower is just playing some tricks here. Actually,
it's 0.009. It's like, it's 9. Like, literally 9 milliseconds.
Yeah, I think I need to get my glasses checked out because I'm not quite seeing that 9 there. Either way, it's going to be very, very tight competition between Philip Beckerwood and Palico Grant at the moment here. Only 9,000ths of a second between them. So I think it's going to be a 2-horse race for the Lithia. But we saw from those last round there, they fight hard. Palikui and Philip Beckerwood fought for almost the entire first half of the race here before Beckerwood managed to sneak themselves away through a couple of slower cars in front of them. And I think that's going to be happening again this round here. They're going to be just caught with a battle between each other. That's going to be giving a chance for Katie, Timberfox, Toonby, and all the other drivers behind them to catch up and maybe pass around them.
Yeah, agreed. This is going to make things very interesting on the race as we see Pally going for yet another run, and it's going to be an improvement, a very large improvement, a 10th improvement, a 127.706. We told, as you said, it was going to be, these times are going to be starting to improve as we see Philip Beckerville go fairly wide to set themselves up for the next corner as we head down toward Mike Knight corner, and then the last corner. It looks like it's going to be an improvement from them as well. Heading down toward last corner, we're going to wait and see. The start-finish line, again, is all the way at the end of the straight, so we aren't going to know for a little bit. Here we go. Heading down the main straight. Is it going to be enough to dethrone Pally yet again? The answer is going to be no. A 141.62. Not even close. I think maybe, it almost looked like maybe out of Piper or Revolver, they had a bit of a wide moment because that's a lot of time lost.
Yeah, they probably had some mistake earlier in the lap time there, so they didn't get their improvement that they want on this lap, but there's still plenty of time to get some more improvements here. Now we're going to be keeping our eye on Sarah Van Fiepelen. They're heading down into, I think that's going to be that long sweeping left down here towards Williams and head to the Moss SS here. And looking further down the grid here, we do have a couple of new drivers that have also joined our Porsche Cup Series this round here. It's going to be Ruben Sandwich. I think they're going to be part of the RNG racing team here. We also have Velox Statera. Funny name. We're also going to be part of the Roadrunner racing team, which I don't think we actually talked a lot about Roadrunner racing. I think they've been around since race
They've
one.
been around a while.
Haven't really made much of a presence. I guess much of their presence known.
So, what I know is that they mainly do iRacing. So obviously, when an iRacing series does come out, we usually see them around. I know Moonstar is very active in stuff like LMP2s. prototypes, etc. So I think that's kind of why we don't see them a lot. It would be nice to see them around more, but you
Yeah,
know, when
yeah.
you have a team set on a certain class, that's fine. As we see, speaking of Roadrunner, I think that was one of them sideways at Hobbs. I don't know who it was though.
Yeah, not sure about that. Not sure about that. But yeah, now we're going to be keeping an eye on Ruben Savage. That's going to be one of our newer RNG racing drivers here, getting on the lap. They have been doing a 1:30, so not the fastest lap times here so far, but they still have a bit of time to get their bearings on the track here. Maybe I think they might be kind of a rookie into iRacing as well, if I'm fully correct here. So they're going to take some time to get up to speed here and just learn the ropes here. But we know from previous experience that even if you might be starting last in your first race in Simufur racing, that means you have probably a lot of potential for improving in the future. I remember like the first time I did any leagues in our Assetto Corsa Competizione leagues, I remember being very much far down the grid here, just trying to improve. So yeah, welcome
Yeah,
in,
you lost to me.
Ruben.
That was my first ever championship.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
That was literally my first championship. I remember that.
Definitely lots of improvement you can get here. So I welcome in Ruben, welcome in Veloxstat here as well. And yeah, let's hope they're going to have a fun race here. We're going to be keeping our eye now on Toombi, who seems to be on a pretty decent lap here. I think they had a green Sector 1 here looking at their last lap time here. So they're going to be in quite a lot of traffic, however. They don't seem to be interfering with them too much unless they get really much in the way here. But we're going to be now switching over to Philip Becker. We're going to be sweeping themselves around those last couple corners. They're very much wide on the track exit here to get the maximum exit speed over to this main straight. You're
It might be enough.
Line. Let's see if it might be an improvement. It is going to be an
Yes,
improvement.
it
It's going to be a 27.656. So it's going to be about a tenth ahead of Palico, who's just been swapping back and forth this entire qualifying session. So it's definitely going to be a two-horse race at the front here. But it seems like Toombi and Neff are catching up.
Yeah, slowly but surely, Neff and Toombi are gaining a little bit of time. And ironically enough, Beckevold and Pally have only been swapping tenths between each other. It's not been any substantial improvements. So I'd say this is going to make things very interesting for round one as we head into the hairpin and now heading toward Revolver is Pally. I believe this is not going to, well, fairly wide going out of Revolver, now heading into Piper. It looks like he's giving it everything he's got. So far, it looks like it's fairly clean now heading into Redmond and Hobbs. So we'll have to wait and see. They've been swapping times before. Is this going to be another 10th improvement as they head down to Mike Knight and then toward the last corner? Will this be enough? Now on the last corner, any minute now we're going to find out. Is this going to be enough? It looks like it was an improvement, but we'll have to see. Is it enough? No,
No,
129.
quite far off there. They do seem to be pushing quite a lot here, and you saw in the Revolver Piper corner there, they went all the way out to like the little bit of an escape road there, because that's part of the national layout, I believe, where they just cut the track short there. But for an optimal lap time around it, you do need to be going all the way out to that part of the escape road there, which is going to be also bounce your car there, because it's going to be curbing, then road, and then back to curbing. So you need to be very careful around that part of the track here to not spin your car around here. And I did a little bit of testing around in the Porsche Cup cars there before we went to racing here, and it's going to be those double left-hander and the double hairpin right after. That's going to be the tricky one here, because the Porsche Cup cars, engine in the rear, so you're not going to have a lot of front grip, so you're going to be going very, very slow in these corners here. Then you're going to be suffering from the understeer on the exit as you're trying to get on the power here. So we're going to be watching again Palico going around the double left-hander again. Again, it's going all the way out to that little double curbing section here before they're going to be heading back onto the main street. We also see a car spinning there in the background, so they're probably going to be heading back to the pits for another attempt. I think that may be newbie as they just teleported to the pits here. But yeah, you see Palico is definitely just pushing as much as they can to get that 10th back from Palico, not from Palico, from Philip Beckavold, apologies.
Yep, 13 minutes done, so about 7 minutes ago. So we're probably gonna have about maybe 5 laps left of practice left. So still a little bit of time, but not a lot left. So Pally's gonna have to make every lap count heading down toward the main straight. Is it gonna be enough to improve? I don't think it is. It is not. 128.847. I think they've been just maybe pushing it a little bit too hard. They also make my thought would be maybe they just go in, maybe put some new tires on and try like a lighter fluid, see if maybe they can improve just a little bit, because all they need is a 10th. That's all they need. That's the distance between these two drivers. And really, if you've got the time, I'd say personally, go in, reset. You've got 7 minutes or like 6 minutes, and you just go in, reset, try again. You've got enough time. So let's see what Pally does heading out of the hairpin on their way to Revolver and Piper. Looks like so far so good. So we follow along now with Philip Beckerwold, who I believe is on an
Yeah, they're
improvement.
chasing
Yeah.
right behind Palikui as well. They're going on the same part of the track. You can see right ahead, that's going to be...
Ooh,
that's going
that's
to
not
be
gonna-
very wide on the exit of Piper Corner. So that's going to be them invalidating the lap time. They're going to be heading right back into the pits there to have another run here. So we're going to switch over to Toomby here, who's going to be also heading now to, on a fresh lap here on the Williams corner, heading into the Moss S here. So this Moss S section is going to be quite interesting, because if you do get alongside another car after the exit of Williams here, you're going to be twisting left and right and left and right. I know from my own races what I'm doing here, that can be quite a dangerous combination. It can cause a lot of incidents if the cars are being a bit racy.
Yeah, and the magical power of netcode can also make things fairly
absolutely.
interesting. Yeah, we've seen netcode ruin races before, and now we have Toomby on a little bit of an improvement. Looks like so far it's at the moment it's no green sector, so maybe this is them coming out on like trying to warm up their tires or something, but we'll wait and see. Now heading out of the or the second set of S's, now heading toward Mike Knight, and then the last. We'll see where this puts him. I don't think it's going to be a huge improvement, if anything at all. Heading down toward the last corner, is this going to be anything of any value? Any second now, we should find out, and the answer is going to be
I would
no.
say no. Yeah, that's going to be
No.
quite far off from their previous lap time here. So they might just need a bit more time to get into the groove and get into that right window to really push everything out of their car here. We haven't seen much improvement from Philip Beckerwold or Palikui Grant either. And it looks like Philip Beckerwold is still in the pit lane here. So it could be that Philip has just concluded that they have just maximized the pace they can get out of the car, and they're just going to be sitting out the end of the qualifying here.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, they're on pole, even though it is a 10th. Like, it feels like it almost looks like they just like, what else can I do? I don't think I can improve it anymore. I might as well just hope for the best. It looks like Pally's not going to improve on it, so I might as well just sit back and just get my head ready to go for the race one, and see where this goes. Following on now with
Indeed. Yeah, we're going to be watching now with Banu Seed on their outlap. Except they're not going to be doing that. They're going to be heading off the track here and on to the pit lane, I assume. Yeah. So we're going to keeping an eye on F Spirit instead here, who seems to be not really improving a lot either. Looking at my sector times, they actually got a green sector 1, so perhaps they're going to be getting a little bit faster. Not quite an improvement on sector 2 here, but sector 3 could be the one way they counter. You can also see right behind that's going to be Sarah Van Fleetland, and if Sarah Van Fleetland does get close enough to F Spirit, they could also benefit from getting a bit of a tow.
Yeah, a little bit of a draft, and that would be a huge help for Sarah Van Vlietland to see if maybe they can jump up a couple spots, heading down toward the last corner. And this is going to be the moment of truth. Are either of these drivers going to improve? Heading down toward the main straight, is there going to be any improvement? I don't think so. No, and no. No big improvement. But who is improving is Palikui Grant. 2 green sectors. This is going to be an improvement. They may not be purple sectors, but it may be enough if they can get this last section done. Here we go, down toward the main straight. Is it going to be enough to steal that pole position away from Philip Beckerwold? It is not, but it was an improvement.
I don't think so. They got a 28-9, so not sure how fast they're going to be compared to the 27-7.
Yeah.
Either way, they're still pushing a lot there. It seems like Philip Beckerwood has finally gotten out to the track as well, so maybe they made a couple of setup adjustments and waiting for the right window to get out on the track as well. Because you see, even though there's only 18 cars, on the track at the moment, we see Philip Beckerwood going sideways onto the gravel trap there, right on the exit of Atwood there. So I think they were just out of the out of the pit box here with fresh cold tires here, which then unfortunately spun the car right here. Yeah, that Atwood curve is going to be very dangerous here, especially when it's going to be on your outlap on cold tires here. The best line for Atwood is just going full flat out as soon as you get off the apex there. And with on cold tires, if you don't have quite that rear grip down, you're just going to be spinning the car around.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a very dangerous prospect, especially early on in the race, because you're going to have cars behind you. It could cost you so much. Following along now with Paliqui as they head up through toward Mike Knight, and now I don't see any purple sectors, so I don't think this is going to be an improvement at all. So, but they were fairly quick in sector 1, but I don't think it's going to be enough because they've had a rough sector 2 and 3, and they've only got. I think this is going to be their last chance after this one. And
No, that's going to be out
no,
of time there. It's going to be 20 minutes capped out. So this was their last chance here. And
oh
yeah, it's going to be the other qualifying. So it's going to be Philip Beckerwold in pole position, followed close behind by Palico Grant here. Unfortunately, Palico would not get the improvement they wanted here, but they are very close to Philip Beckerwold here. So it's going to be absolutely a very, very exciting race start.
oh, absolutely, it's gonna. They're only off by a 10. That is pretty insane considering how close these fights have been between all of our drivers, really. And I'm interested to see how this goes because I remember we remember race 2 in Hockenheim. That was pretty intense.
Yeah.
And this, I think this is just going to keep going as we now wait for everybody to grid up. So we have P1 is going to be Philip Beckerville, P2 Faliqui Grant, P3 Toomby, P4 will be Neff, P5 will be Katie Timberfox, P6 will be F Spirit, and P7 Sarah Von Viepel, and P8 Panu Saitanen. P9 will be Giando, P10 Newbie, P11 Futaku, P12 Wanev, P13 Inigo Lopez, P14 Moonstar Aldenis, P15 Mati Alanco, P16 Alakopsa. Yeah, sorry. P16 Ruben Samic, and P17 Vossi Tigris, and P18 will be Velax Stateria.
Right
Statera?
on time, because we're probably going to be going green lights out here any minute now, any second now. We're going to have a couple of cars who have not gridded up yet. That's going to be Palico Grant and Sarah Van Fiepel here. So we're going to be watching very, very closely. And it's going to be a pretty short run into turn 1 here. So there's going to be all about just how good of a launch we get here. Okay, it's going to be a standing start. Now, everybody's going to be grid, so we're going to be seeing those lights coming up here any second here. There we go. It's going to be 5 red lights. Everybody's going to be watching those lights very carefully here. Just hands on the clutch, hands on the pedal. And it's going to be go, 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 go. A good launch from Philip Beckerwold. Got to be joined right alongside by Palico Grant there. So it's going to be a monstrous launch for them. Got to be Palico Grant on the outside there with Philip Beckerwold taking that defensive inside line here. But we see in the background it's going to be Toomby and Neff also going side by side into that first corner here. It's going to be again going side by side, heading through that sweeping left-hander corner here. Williams. Palico Grant is just not able to keep up with the massive launch that Philip Beckerwold got from that first corner and first couple corners there. They're going to be just chasing down, but here's going to be coming up the very important Atwood curve here. They're going to have to get a massive good exit here. It's going to be now Palico Grant chasing down Philip Beckerwold heading into this long straight. This could be their best chance for an overtake.
Yeah, absolutely best chance for an overtake, and we can see that they've gained a little bit of time on Philip Beckerwold because Philip Beckerwold is out in no man's land and Paliqui is still within a second. They do have that draft going into the main straight. Here we go, going into the hairpin on their way to the revolver. So far, so good, looking clean so far as we see Philip Beckerwold go a little bit wide, setting themselves up for Piper. Now heading down toward the main, heading out of Piper. On our way to the next corner, looking on the inside, it's going to be Philip Beckerwold still in the lead. We can see a little bit of fighting in the back, in the midsection there. But as we see, actually, there's a little bit of trouble. That's going to be, I think
that's Vossi and One. That's Vossi and One spun around on the second hairpin. Actually, first hairpin. They're going to be in the Redmond corner here, so that's going to be very bad running for Vossi. I saw them climbing up the standings there in the background there, but unfortunately, a contact with a Cabal racing driver just caused them to slip down through the field here. But somebody who's also getting away. It looks like it's Philip Beckerwold here. They're just going on a massive charge here. They had almost 7/10 faster lap time compared to Palico Grant here, despite Palico having that slipstream here. So it looks like this is going to be Philip Beckerwold's race to win here.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's still early to tell, but we'll have to wait and see. Heading down toward the Moss S, it's for the second time of this race. It almost looks like Pali just can't get the tires up to temp or anything like that. They're just having a rough time trying to get the car up and going. This is going to make things a little bit easier for Philip Beckerwold As you can see, the gap is still 7 tenths. On following now, Sarah Von Viepelen with their teammate. I believe that's Guyando. I'm sorry. They got a teammate up front, and then they've got a Tig Gang racing driver behind them, heading toward Revolver and Piper, and that's going to be a very interesting fight. In now heading out of Piper, down our way to Redmond. So far, so good. We're going to see a massive send from.
That was going to be Pescetti there. They're fighting F-Speed, as you can see there, but not quite enough for them to make that send happen into that first hairpin there. But they're still going to be right behind them as they go to this double right-hander to mic that into last corner. It's got to be crucial to get that good exit onto this main stretch here. We just utilize that slipstream there. You can see there's a huge gaggle of cars right behind. There's going to be 5 cars back-to-back on this main straight here, trying to hustle for position here. Pescetti had that little peak going on the inside here. We're not keeping our eye on Futaku, who's getting really close into Gyando's rear bumper here, almost brushing them going into the first corner here, but not quite got to be quite enough there to make that send happen here. But they're going to be again trying to follow as close as possible. We also see, I think that's going to be Nico Lopez right behind Newbie there, who's also having their own fight for position background there. But now it's going to be Futaku getting right up in there. It's got to be keeping our eye on now in Nico Lopez there, and now back to Gyando there, trying to defend on that inside line there. With it seems like Futaku went wide there on that extra. That's going to be helping them at all there. But you can see there's just lots of slipstream patterns happening here. But it looks like everybody's keeping it nice and clean so far. But
yeah,
we're now keeping out Philip Becco. They're going to have to defend into the inside corner there. Palico has finally caught up to them here, so it's going to be race lit up here with Tubi right in the background. They're ready to pounce on these two.
Yeah, I was actually about to point that out. I was looking at the camera, and it looked like Pally has got a major surge in pace. The gap is now not even half a second. And it is climbing more and more. It almost looked like Pally was just trying to save tires and see how they maybe just survive lap 1, and absolutely it's paid dividends, because look at how close Pally Grant is to Philip Beckevold. But they're just out of reach. They're just having a little bit of a better quarter entry or better corner exit going out of the corners. Here we go out of the last corner down toward the main straight, completing yet another lap. We are 5 minutes in, and the fighting has only just begun. Now heading into the first corner, it looks like Pally's going to hold the inside line. Philip Beckevold trying to go a little bit wider, trying to gain as much time as he can. Heading into Williams, look at how close Pally is to the bumper of Philip Beckevold. We're now heading into the Moss S's. Is there an opportunity here for Pally? Are they going to try to send it into Atwood? No, they are not. They're going to hold on to the bumper of Philip Beckevold and try to do what they can to maybe try to make a move in the hairpin. Let's see who has the better exit going out of Atwood. Here we go, heading down toward the longest straight of the racetrack. It's going to be heading toward the hairpin. Is Pally going to try to make a move? They're definitely thinking about it. You can see them kind of lingering on the inside, trying to find a move here, but it's not enough. Heading into Revolver and then Piper. It looks like they're just going to settle in now and maybe try to make it go on the next lap.
Beckevold absolutely feeling the pressure here right now with Palico less than 3 tenths right behind them. Again, almost brushing the rear bumper, heading into Redmond, then over into the Hobbs corner here. But now we're going to be seeing a fight. It's going to be F-Spirit and Pescetti going side by side, but it's going to be Pescetti washing out really wide. They're giving F-Spirit the opportunity to swing right out the inside, but there's going to be, again, another inside for Pescetti heading into the Hobbs corner. So they're going to be now washing themselves right out on the inside. They're going to be pushing F-Spirit on that up to outside line. They would giving an opportunity for also Sarah Van Viepelen to also sneak their way through the inside. It's going to be F-Spirit again, forced out wide. There's going to be also Gyando and Futaku. Everybody's going to be pouncing on this blue and golden Cabal racing team car. It's going to be Gyando Bob drafting Sarah Van Viepelen alone into the first corner. Is there going to be a chance for them to get around? Yes, it's going to be Sarah Van Viepelen getting right through there, but there's going to be still one more corner left to go there. But no, Sarah Van Viepelen just got their nose chopped off right in front of F-Spirit. That's going to be a nice, beautiful overtake with, again, F-Spirit lose even more time. That's going to be now Futaku. That's also going to be Newbie. They're just hemorrhaging positions and speeds. They're just being so all out of sorts that they just can't have any breaks there.
Yeah, no brakes whatsoever. They just had one back corner, and it opened the door for so many of the cars behind them, and F-Spirit had nowhere to go. They were just, at that point, just a passenger, just trying to see what they could save, and unfortunately, it did not save a lot. They were able to kind of squeeze in between Newbie, and now we are following along with another battle going on. This is Katie Timberfox following their teammate, Nep, heading down out of Piper. This is going to be, I don't think there's going to be really any movement. You can see Neff still gaining a little bit of ground here, heading out into Redmond and Hobbs. As you can see behind them, that fight is still going on. It's settled down a little bit, but not by much. They're still setting up as F-Spirit is, I believe, yeah, they are behind Futaku, but they were able to keep the gap between them and as we go back to the battle for the lead. This is going to be Philip Beckevold and Palico Grant once again going at it. You can see there's a little bit of debris in turn one heading into Williams, and now I think Beckevold got a little bit of a better out of that corner and it's given them a little bit of gap. I don't think I can see Pally trying to make a move here, heading on the inside into Atwood, and we can see that Pally is actually fairly strong going out of Atwood. You can see they gain a lot of time going out of that corner. You can see they're right on the bumper of Philip Beckevold. Are they going to try to make a move into Hairpin? It doesn't look like it. They're probably going to settle in. It looks like they're going to settle in, see if maybe they can make one later down the line. Here we go, heading into Hairpin, now heading toward Revolver. You can see they're right on the bumper of Philip Beckevold, but you can also see somebody else who's joined this party. That's Toomby in the third position. It looks like they're slowly but surely gaining on this little battle here. This could make things very interesting later on.
Very interesting indeed, but they don't seem to be quite there yet. But with Palikui and Beckevold here both fighting really, really hard. They're now also in 2/10 range of each other here, going through Mike Knight into last quarter here. So this could be now the opportunity for Palikui to try and get that send out. They're going to have to get the absolute best exit. They go a little bit on the gravel trap there, but does not seem to have slowed them down at all. It's going to be gap shrinking down there on those relatives. They're going to be getting closer and closer and closer. But again, Palikui just seems to be very, very patient. They're not making any moves. They're not being overly aggressive on Beckevold. They're just keeping that pressure up on that Norwegian driver there, just hoping to maybe pressure them into making some kind of mistake here. Again, a very wide going to the exit of Williams' corner here. Again, just staying within that 2/10 window here. So they're just maybe hoping that Philip Beckevold is going to be cracking there. Going to be seeing again as they go head down into Atwood there. Let's see how good of an exit can both of them got there. So looks like both of them got a really nice and tidy exit. So they're going to be again, now the grab is even smaller than last time. It's going to be only 2/10, now 1.5/10. This could be the chance that Palikui wants there, the exact opportunity that they need here. But again, looks like they're not making any moves there. So it seems like it's all going to be down to Palikui just either like working with Beckevold there to stay ahead and get away from Tupi, or they're just waiting for Beckevold to make a mistake.
I almost feel like, yeah, that they're trying to wait for Beckevold to make a mistake because they've been very calm, I guess is the best way to put it. They've been very calm going for moves. They have not been very aggressive. They've been not trying to force Beckevold to make moves, which is a little bit surprising, but it is early on. So I'm wondering if Pally is playing the long game here and is going to try to maybe make a move later on because he knows that he has similar pace to Beckevold and is trying to maybe save his tires a little bit to see at the very end maybe he can try to make a better push than Beckevold.
This could also be some smart thinking regarding the next race here, because they're going to be doing inverted positions in the race here. So if Palikui just wants to stay behind Beckevold, use that slipstream to get away from Toombi, Neff, and others behind them, this could also then put them in a very advantageous position going into the next race where they're going to be starting P9 instead of P10. So that's going to be one car less to fight, but we don't know what they're going to be thinking out there. All we can see is just these cars going absolute full send into every single corner here, with Palikui just waiting very patiently right behind that multicolored HP printer livery car here. And with seems like Toombi has lost a little bit more time there. The gap is now increased to 1.3 seconds here. So unless these two cars start fighting, I think Toombi's going to be slowly losing the fight here.
Yeah, as we follow on now, this is another battle going on. This is Esprit versus Futaku, and it looks like Esprit may get the better of this, but they're in the outside line. That's not going to be very advantageous going into Hairpin. As you can also see, he's getting bump draft by Newbie, trying to make a move on the inside. Is it going to be enough for Futaku to make a move into Hairpin? He does, and it looks like Newbie was going to try to do the same. Futaku is blinking. That's not good. Here we go, heading into Revolver and Piper. It looks like Esprit's going to be able to file behind Futaku here and maybe try to make a move going into Redmond. Here we go. We can see Newbie thinking about it, but then thinking better of it, because look who's right behind him. That is Inigo Lopez right behind. It is now turned from a two-way fight to a four-way fight, and look at that. It was Futaku going very wide, going out of Hobbs, and that's opened the door for so many drivers heading down into the last corner. It looks like Futaku's going to lose their positions to Newbie and Inigo, because you can look at them. They're heading on the outside, heading on the inside. This is going to be very advantageous for Inigo if they're able to make the move here. They are not, though. You can see that the blinking is very real. I'm wondering if they're having maybe an internet connection or something like that. Here we go, heading down into Williams. You can see that Inigo was not able to get the job done, but it is very, very close. This four-way fight is still going on, and I think this could be anyone's game. As we head down into Atwood, is there going to be another move here? There is not, but you can see that Newbie is definitely thinking about it. Here we go. Newbie, I think, will have the better exit because they played the defensive. F-Spirit played the very defensive line going out of Atwood. You can see the momentum is getting very close. Is Newbie going to make a move on the inside, going into the hairpin? He's thinking about it. But it's opened the door for. It's opened the door for Futaku, but it actually is also opened the door for Inigo Lopez. You can see heading down into Revolver, looking on the inside, but then thinking better of it. They're maybe going to try to go for an over-under, but there was just not enough gap. Heading down toward the straight on their way to Redmond. This battle is still going on, and it is anyone's game.
Anyone's game in so much fighting, but still no change in position so far here. It looked like Futaku had a bit of an loose moment going off the exit of Hopstep, which just gave you the opportunity for Newbie and F-Spirit to swing back way through into the front of the field here. We're going to be now seeing Newbie here, seeing how good they can get that exit onto the main straight here. Looks to be a very nice and tidy here, so it's going to be now a bit of a slipstream battle heading into the first quarter here. We also see another slipstream battle happening right ahead of them, but we're going to be keeping our attention on Newbie as they're going to be swinging down into first quarter here. Looks like they got a really nice and tidy exit, but it looks like F-Spirit got themselves an even better exit because you need to be setting yourself up very nice and tidy heading into Williams here, because otherwise you're going to be suffering all the way down into Atwood Quarter if you can't get this exit right here. Looks like F-Spirit got the better run of these all here, but it looks like Futaku and Nico Lopez got them even worse to the exit behind them because the gap is increasing even more here. That's going to be Newbie getting really tight on the inside line here, seemed kind of caught out by how slow F-Spirit was on the exit of a corner. They actually had to back out there a little bit, so now they lost a lot of exit speed here, so they're not going to be able to make that move happen yet here, but that's going to be given an opportunity for Futaku and Nico Lopez to stay in this fight here. No changes in position, no defensive moves happening here so far. Again, looks like Nico, not Inigo, but F-Spirit going for a very slow line into the hairpin corner here, which is going to be given an opportunity for Newbie to get a little bit closer, inching ever so close there, but still not quite enough space to make a move happen.
Yeah, not yet. It's been very close, but not enough. You can see that the gap has kind of evened out, but there's still an opportunity for some of the drivers. You can see Inigo slowly creeping in on Futaku, heading out of Hobbs, but I don't think there's going to be any moves gained here. Heading out of heading toward last corner. Here we go. You can see the gaps opened up a little bit more. It's now evened out, but it's just enough to where all four of them have the draft. And you can also see in the distance that their other team, that's Futaku's other teammate, Moodstar Aldness, trying to gain, but it's going to be a long ways. Now following along now with another battle. This is going to be a team battle. This is between Pescetti and Sarah von Fieplin heading into Atwood. It looks like Pescetti got very wide. It looks like they both got wide, and that's now opened the door for Neff. Here we go, heading out of Atwood. Sarah von Fieplin in a worse spot. You can see that Neff's got the better line going into the main straight, heading into hairpin. Is this going to be a 2-for-1? Because you see they both had a very rough exit out of Atwood. You can see that they got by Sarah von Fieplin, but the door is open. Oh, that's Guiando. I'm sorry. Guiando now. Yeah, they had similar cars. They are now heading out of Piper, and now Guiando looking for a move. They were able to get by von Fieplin earlier, but are they going to be able to get by Pescetti? Sorry.
I think we might need a little bit of a break here.
Maybe.
Please. We're going to be keeping our eye on Guiando here. They got themselves through Van Fieplin, but they're still going to have to get through Seaton here. They're going to be with a very loose exit going onto the main straight here, so there's got to be Pescetti still staying ahead right in the background here. We can see the other four-car battle happening right there as well. But you also see something has happened. Paliku, they've spun. They've lost their car. Oh, they're going to be slipping themselves all the way down. They're going to be now passed by Guiando, Van Fieplin, F-Spirit, Newbie, Futaku, Inigo Lopez. Their team boss. They've lost so much time. I'm not quite sure if there was or some kind of other contact that happened between Beckabot and Palico, but that's going to be losing them all that progress they gained. We're going to be keeping an eye on Palico right here. That's going to be heading into that very first corner. They're just going to be tie on the grass there, so I think they may have just pushed a little bit too hard, and
Yeah.
they just lost the car and spun around, so that's going to be a disaster for them. This is the absolute last thing they want. That one mistake, and now they're going to be all the way down in 12th.
Yeah, lost so many spaces or positions from that mistake, and it's now basically sealed the deal for Philip Beckevold. But now, you know what? Actually, if you think about it, think of it this way. Even though Pally has lost 12 spots, all he needs, really, if you think about it, is 2. Because if he gets 10th position, guess what? He'll be in pole. So that's going to be a huge... That's just me thinking out loud as we keep following along this battle with Giando and Paschetti and Sarah Van Viepelen. It's kind of evened out heading into the last corner. Things have kind of evened out between the two, and you can see Paschetti slowly pulling away from this little train here as they get closer to turn 1.
They're pulling away indeed, and thinking about Palico, I think that's going to be the best chance to minimize the damage they just suffered from that spin they had. They're just trying to get into 10th place so they can just start on pole for the next race around there, but they're still going to have to get to that position here because they're quite far back from Inigo Lopez and Futako. Those are going to be the 2 cars they're going to be focusing on here, and the gaps are indeed increasing between these 2 other cars. So Giando losing a bit of ground to Paschetti. I think maybe the spin they had trying to get around Palico maybe put them also all out of sorts here. You can see they caught very wide on the exit of that sweeping Atwood Korea, which is going to be given an opportunity for Van Viepelen to get around.
Oh, that's
also
cute.
going to
That's
be
Katie.
Fox. They've also spun. They've also lost the car on the exit of that Atwood Korea. That's going to be the worst place to be losing time there, or to spin around there, because that's going to be right before a long straight. So you can see that's going to be Futaku in the background. Actually, not going to be Mustar Aldonis there in the background, having a look on overtaking Katie Timberfox here. But let's see if we can get a replay of what exactly happened. I already have a feeling of what's going to be happening here. They're going to be heading over into Atwood Curve here. Hard on those brakes. They're trying to chase around Giando there. Giando went very loose on that corner. They lost a lot of time there, but it looks like Katie Timberfox just lost the car. They had a pit stop. They're going to be hitting hard into that outside wall there. They lost their front bumper even there, looks like. So, yeah. That corner is very treacherous indeed. If you don't have that rear grip, you're going to be spinning into the wall here. You're going to be hemorrhaging lots and lots of time. So Katie's going to be kicking themselves after that.
Yeah, unfortunate for Katie, but this is actually a big advantage for Pally. They are now in P11, meaning that they are going to have to just get one more spot, and that is their team boss, Inigo Lopez. They're only about a second, I almost want to say. It's about a second between them and Inigo. Yeah, 2.5. Oh, it's 2.5 seconds. I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong thing. It's 2.5 seconds between Pally and Inigo. So this should hopefully they will be able to get in time. Here we go. This is going to be this is going to be round 2. This is going to be Sarah Van Viepelen and Giando heading into or out of Atwood down toward the main straight, heading toward Atwood. You can see that Van Viepelen's just sitting right behind Giando. They decided not to make a move here. They're just going to keep sitting on the back bumper, looking on the outside of
I saw spin.
Revolver.
I think that was
Wait,
spin.
there was.
I think that's Esprit.
That was.
Yeah, Esprit has spun around as well.
Oh
This
no!
seems to be even more funny. And they've teleported to the pits. Oh no!
Yeah,
Esprit out of the race there. So I think
What
there was some
happened?
incident, or maybe they just lost the car going on the exit of that hairpin here. Maybe we can see a replay of that later here. There's going to be another car
here we
less
go.
for Palico to think about there. So I saw that fighting happening in the background there. It's going to be Esprit trying to defend, I think, from Futako there. Just going to be trying to go on that outside line there. But no, I think they just
what?
lost the car. They pushed a bit too hard there. They just lost the car.
No,
I
they got
think that's
contact.
Inigo.
That was Inigo.
Yeah.
Can we get
Oh,
can we get one
no.
on Inigo's perspective? I think it was a rear end.
Yeah, I think that
It almost looks like that Inigo kind of tapped the bumper of Futaku. Here we go. We're going to get it from Inigo's perspective. Heading down into hairpin. That is Inigo. Here we go. Heading into the hairpin. Yeah, they just had that. Wait. Was that netcode?
Yeah, I think what happened is that Inigo just got caught up by how slow F-Speed was going into that hairpin corner here, and then unfortunately tapped F-Speed on the rear and spun them around there. So that's going to be the absolute last thing F-Speed wants to do, and looks like they have retired from the race for now, with about 10 minutes left of the race to go, so they're going to be no longer racing. But maybe we'll see them again for the next race here. But we're going to be keeping our attention now on Van Viepen, again chasing down Giando into that long back straight here, into the hairpin corner here. But looks like there's again no changes in position here so far. Again, almost touching Giando, almost a repeat of that incident we saw with Inigo Lopez and F-Speed there, but no incident here, thankfully. So they're going to be just trying to chase them down as much as possible here. But the more these cars are fighting, you can see Paschetti, the gap has increased massively. The gap is now 2.2 seconds, so there's not going to be much of a chance for them to catch it anymore in this couple of minutes here.
Yeah, unfortunately, the deal has been sealed for Philip Beckervold. It is now a 4-second gap for the lead. As we keep following along with this little battle here between Sarah Van Vieven and Guiando. I'd also like to point something else out. Look who's in P9 and P10. It is Inigo Lopez and Palico Grant. That is the absolute best thing you want for race 2. So I think at this point, I almost want to say that Pally, personally, would just have to just stay where he is, because you have your teammate right there next to you, and you will be P2 after this. So at that point, it's just go for that as we keep following along with this battle. As you can see, Van Viepen going a little bit wide out of Williams, and it's cost them a fair bit of time to Guiando heading out of the Moss S's and into Atwood. Are they going to be able to gain a little bit of time? It does not look like it. It looks like Guiando had a much better exit going out of Atwood, and it is causing them to bleed time heading down toward the main straight. As we can see, now we have another fight going on. This is between Futaku and Newbie heading into the hairpin. It looks like Futaku got a lot of straight out of the hairpin, but they almost had contact with Newbie heading out of Revolver and then into Piper. And now it looks like they're going to try to maybe go at it again, but so far I don't see the gap being improving a little bit, but it's not going to be enough to make a move. Here we go, heading out of Redmond and into Hobbs, looking for a spot. No, it looks like they're probably just going to settle in.
Yeah, it looks like we also have an update from F-Spirit here from their chat that apparently they had some PC issues, so unfortunately they were not able to continue the race, so they're going to be out from this race and from the second race as well. So unfortunate technical issues from F-Spirit, so hopefully we're going to be seeing them again for the next round. But we're going to be keeping our attention now again on Futaku here. They lost a bit of ground on Newbie on the exit of the last corner there. We're going to be heading into first corner, trying to gain that time back again here. We see ahead, going to be Sarah Van Viepen and Guiando also just again no distance between them either there. Sarah Van Viepen seems to have settled just to be trailing right behind Guiando, maybe just forcing them or pressuring them to make a mistake at some point here. We're going to be seeing again going very close. There's going to be a big send into the Atwood corner here, but that's probably compromised their exit a little bit here. But no, they seem to be still within that 3/10 window there. So if they're feeling brave, they might just make a send happen here. They're going to be bleeding, like gaining a lot and a lot heading into the hairpin corner here, but no, they're going to be staying right behind Guiando heading into the hairpin, a bit washed out wide, so they're going to be losing a bit more speed and exit speed on the hairpin heading now into Revolver and Piper corner here. But it looks like Sarah and people again is just inching that gap a little bit slower, a couple of loose corners there, but they're gaining that time ever so slightly, corner by corner here. They're keeping that pressure up on Guiando, who's going to have to see that pink and white car in their rear view mirrors, left, right, that main rear view mirror as well. So they're going to have to keep up this defense for a couple more minutes longer.
Yeah, a few more minutes as we see. This is going to be a battle between, I believe this is Inigo Lopez and Katie Timberfox. It looks like they were able. This is going to be 4P10. It looks like Katie was able to get around Inigo at some point. I don't know what happened, but now they're slowly but sure they're slowly pulling away, and now it looks like Inigo's maybe going to try to make a last-ditch effort on turn 1, but you can see the gap is just not there. It looks like Katie's slowly but surely pulling away from the Bluey driver, heading down toward Williams. Is Inigo going to try to gain a little bit of time? They are heading into Williams. Is there going to be enough of a gap for them to make another effort? It does not look like it as they head toward the Moss S's.
Yeah, not much of a change in position here. It looks like Katie Timberfox is just able to extract a bit more pace out of that trans-colored Porsche Cup car there, as opposed to Inigo Lopez in their blue livery car there. So they're going to be just losing that time, but they're going to be losing that time heading into the main straight here, because Inigo Lopez is still staying within the draft for Katie Timberfox. You can see that gap is shrinking little by little there, but there's not going to be any moves happening here so far. They're going to be staying back to back, not side by side heading into there. They're probably going to be very careful about making any more sense in the hairpin after the first incident they had here. But look, that's going to be Palico Grant caught up to Newbie and Futaku here. Palico Grant making a look on the inside here, diving deep into those brakes. They're going to be forcing Futaku out wide there. That's going to be now inside, turning into the outside for Palico, but they still are carrying all of that momentum from that first corner, popping doors,
a little bit of contact.
Windows, dropping door mirrors there, but that's going to be Palico just about squeezing their way through Futaku. That's going to be down into Newbie. So I think they're not going to be settling themselves into P1, because the points gap between Philip Beckerwood and Palico Grant is a single point in the standing so far, so Palico needs to gain every single point he can to try and minimize the gap, the points lost to their rival.
That is true. I didn't think about that because I didn't realize how close. I forgot to check the points, and yeah, it really at this point it's just a matter of trying to get as many points as they can, and then making an even bigger improvement on the second race. As we see, this is a battle. I believe this is a battle between Giando and Von Vlieplen has returned itself as Sarah Von Vlieplen heading out of Atwood got a little bit of a better launch. Looks like they're going to try to maybe make a move going into hairpin. They're right on the bumper of Giando. You can see they're going deep on the inside. Is it going to be enough? It is not, but you can see Giando goes very wide, and now that opens the door for Sarah Von Vlieplen to get him into hairpin. Now heading down towards
just for that right moment to make that mistake happen. Apologies for cutting you off here, but yeah, that's got to be just a bit of pressure on Giando, just forcing themselves to go on that top patrol line there. They missed their braking. That's going to be Van Vlieplen through into P5 here, and now going to be chasing down Badu Seaton and hopefully for another chance. But there's only got to be a couple of minutes left here, so there's not going to be much time left for them to make any moves happen here. We also see in the background there's going to be Palico again trying to get even closer to Newbie there. That can be now almost back to back heading into Mike Knight corner into the last corner here. Let's see if there's going to be enough momentum for Palico to get around Newbie. It looks like Palico got themselves a much better exit compared to Newbie, so they're going to be almost brushing bumpers. It's going to be now them going a drag race side by side heading into the main stretch. This is going to be the crucial corner for Newbie to try and defend, but they've got to be all that sub-up to outside line here. It's going to be actually Palico already ahead of them, actually touching bumpers with Newbie there, but Palico managed to just about get ahead there. But look who's there. That's going to be Futaku also joining this battle here, trying to capitalize on this unopportune moment from Newbie here. Got to be now back with a fight. You've got to be Newbie already lost the position to Palico. That's to see if they can also lose the position to Futaku. They're going to be going deep on the defensive inside line. They're forcing Futaku to make a massive evasive move on the outside there. That looked very sketchy there, but it looks like they both got away through.
barely, but it cost them so much time. As you can see, the gap has increased massively between Futaku and Newbie. As you can see, Pally slowly but surely pulling away. They now need to catch up to the fight between Giando and Sarah Von Vlieplen, which I don't think is going to happen. That's in 3 seconds ahead, and they've only got, I believe this will be the last lap. This next lap will be the last one. So, and I don't see them gaining any more positions, but they're in a decent spot, P7, as we see Philip Beckervold on the last lap heading down the main straight. Philip Beckervold got very lucky going for with Pally having that mistake going out of turn one, and it is now Philip Beckervold's race to lose, heading out of the Moss S's and down toward Atwood. So far, so good. They've not really had any major pressure anymore, so they're going to probably just cruise to the finish line as they head down the main straight. They've got a little bit of lap traffic ahead of them, but I don't see that being a big issue.
Not much of an issue. I think there's not going to be enough time for Philip Beckerwood to catch up to that lap traffic around here. So they're just going to be taking it nice and easy for this last lap around here to cross the finish line. And yeah, they were a little bit lucky with Palico spinning around on the early part of the race, but they were clearly the faster driver of the two there. They got the better run in qualifying. They also got a really good run in the first lap there that managed to keep them ahead on that fight there. We're going to be seeing them now going through those last couple corners, through this double hairpin Redman and into Hubs. And yeah, Toombi is 7, almost 8 seconds behind in P2 here there. So there's not going to be much of a chance for them to contest either. So it's going to be quite a distant second and third place. But there's going to be podiums they're going to be very happy about here. Now going to be Philip Beckerwood across the finish line on that final straight here, almost across the finish line here, chasing down Velix Statera here. So Velix Statera is going to have to do one more lap here, as they see right behind. That's going to be Philip Beckerwood doing a bit of a celebratory weave here on the main straight here. So a very good victory for Philip Beckerwood. That's going to mean they're going to be starting all the way down in P2. There's just going to be a big uphill battle to get through there. But we have even more fighting. That's going to be Juanivi and Matti Alakops there with a fight on the last couple corners. They're going to be doing that double left-hander into Piper, into Roman. It looks like there's a bit of damage, looks like. Oh no! It's going to be
there's
Matti.
trouble.
Also to the backer, they just spun on the last lap there, losing all the time they were trying to gain on Matti Alakops and Yuan V there. So that's going to be unfortunate. That's going to be losing the time also to Velix the Terra. Now, actually, that's going to be Ruben Savage right there. So very unfortunate mistake on the last lap there for Vossi Dickus. They're going to be Ruben Savage, the brand new driver for RNG Racing, getting themselves right into points position in P15 there, getting a 1 extra point there. It looks like nothing also happened with Moonstar and Yuavi, so they're going to be staying there. Going to be keeping our eye now on They would just try to follow this fight here, heading between 1v and Mattiala comes here. It looks like they just pushed a bit too hard on the exit of the turn there, losing the car and spinning around and losing one more position to Ruben Samic there. So unfortunately, they're going to be finishing all the way down in P16, right behind P15 over Ruben Samic there. So lots of fighting. Even the last lap there, we saw that change in position between 1v and Mattiala Cup's side. 1v just managed to get themselves in P13. That's going to be a good result for them. Now we're going to be watching the Velox there going one last time around Mike Knight corner into last corner here. Got to be finishing and rounding out our grid in P17. So despite the top 3 being quite far apart here, we still definitely saw lots of action.
A lot of action and a lot of interesting fights and a lot of mistakes and incidents as well, which is super unfortunate, but it should make things in the next race very interesting as we set up for what will be a 5-minute warm-up session, and then we will get into race 2.
Yes, gotta be a little bit of a time for our drivers to just calm down, catch their breath, and just reset themselves. We saw those internets from Bossy Dickers, from Calico, and from Felipe Roxer that just cost them quite a lot of time there. So hopefully they just take a moment to maybe get themselves a glass of water, reset themselves, and just get back into a better run on the next race here. So it's gonna be, again, reverse grid for that second race we're gonna be having here. It's gonna be Felipe Beckwood starting all the way up, down in P10. It's gonna be followed by 2B, Nev, Paulo Seaton, and Sarvan Pippen reverse there. But that's gonna be the important one. It's gonna be Palico Grant starting up in P4, if I'm correct. So that's going to be the best chance for Palico to just try and get as far ahead as possible and just hoping that Beckable is going to be caught up in traffic that is on the down. But you can also see on the map, you can see on the track, it's going to be wet. The rain has arrived.
The rain has indeed arrived. We were expecting it, and it is here for race 2. And that's going to make things very interesting for race 2, as you can see some of the drivers going out and maybe just doing a little bit of warm-up before the race to get used to the track conditions. You can see the water spraying everywhere. Now, because it's a reverse grid, this could make things fairly interesting as we see Katie heading out of Atwood and on their way to the... Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's Hairpin. Heading in the Hairpin.
There we go.
I did. I caught myself.
There we go.
And, yeah, heading into Hairpin and then into Piper, or Revolver and then into Piper. And you can see that there are certain parts of the track that are wet, and then you can see here it's not as wet, but you can still see there's still some spray.
I do have to correct you there. I think what you see there, that's going to be the dark rubber line. That would normally be the racing line here, but with how iRacing simulates its water physics here, that rubber line is going to be covered in water, so it's going to be actually lower grip than normal, as you can see right here. There's also going to be quite a lot of puddles around there, so that's going to be something our drivers are going to have to keep in mind, that if the rain is very heavy, I don't think currently there is any rain at the moment here, but the track is just going to be very much saturated with water here. So with that very highly saturated track here, the racing line might not be the most optimum place to be going on. You're going to lose actually quite a lot of traction here. So the ideal line would be to be a little bit off that normal racing line here, so you can get a bit of extra traction from that unrubbered line there and just get yourself a better exit there. But that's going to be something our driver's going to have to be very much aware of before we get to our race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is what they're trying to figure out. As you can see, Toombi ahead. As you can see, Katie very deep on the brakes going to Atwood. She was able to save it, but that was a bit sketch. That was very sketch. They were, hats off to her for almost getting sent into Narnia there. Heading into the hairpin, you can see that the sun is kind of out. I mean, I can still see little glances of light in certain spots. You can see that the overspray is not as massive, I guess is the best way to put it. So whether or not we're going to get full-blown rain or is it just going to be wet remains to be seen. And
I am looking at the weather radar here, and we just missed those rain clouds here, so we're going to be in the part of the session after the rain has already parted here, so we're going to be only on a wet track there with no more rain being put on here, but we're going to be seeing if that's still going to be the case after this 1.5 minutes is up, and then we're going to be heading over to our feature race here. But you can already see there's quite a lot of variance in our lap times here. Already looking at their first couple laps, they're going to be going across the finish line there. No actually valid laps on the board yet, but you can see quite a lot of difference in pace here. We're going to be Yeah, so it's going to be quite a lot of difficulties for all of our drivers to get the traction down on these cars there with They do have wet tires, I'm pretty sure, because otherwise we would not be racing around here. But you can see a lot of different lines already on the board here. Massive time difference in lap times as well, with a 139.3. So that's going to be almost 10 seconds lost on these conditions.
Yeah, and that's going to make things a bit interesting. It was already fairly tight on without rain. Let's see how it does with rain. We've got about 30 seconds of warm-up left as we keep following along with this little pack here of Katie and Toombi heading toward Hairpin. You can see that there's a lot of overspray down the main straight, and then when you get into like the other, like section 2, section 3, it's kind of tapered off. I don't know if it's just because the sun's been kind of baking into it or something like that, but we'll have to see as we follow along now with Paliqui Grant heading out of, I believe this is the last corner, heading down the main straight. They will be the last one to cross the line as they head toward the line, as the 5 minutes are up. So we should be seeing the field reset any second now. Up there we go.
Yep.
So now we wait to see if the rain is back, or is it going to be dry or wet but no rain.
I am looking at the map right now. It looks like the rain clouds have parted. They are not on the track at the moment, but there very much clearly is water. It looks like it's going to be a lightly wet track here. So it's not going to be a full-on rain race as we may have anticipated early on here, but there's absolutely going to be wet on the track here. So it's going to be all of our drivers putting on those wet tires here, at least for the first part of the race here. And I don't think there's going to be any reasoning for you to pit stop for dry tires at any point yet with how short the race is. And I don't think there's going to be enough of a dry line to forming here to make that wet to dry tire transition make sense here. So it's going to be Katie Timberfox actually starting on pole position here, followed by Futaku in P2, Newbie in P3, Paliqui Grant in that crucial P4 position, trying to minimize the damage they gain from that spin in that first race there. It's going to be then Giando in P5, Sarvan Fiplan in P6, followed by Banu Sidona in P7 here. Then it's going to be P8 and Neff, going to be P Nanjumbi in our previous race winner, Philip Beckerwood, starting in P10. So it's going to be a very exciting race for sure. It's going to be very crucial to see if Philip Beckerwood can just get around all these other cars here or get caught in traffic. We actually saw that it was not the easiest to make those overtakes happen here. We're going to see that rain right now because it's going to be 5 lights. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Drivers are ready. Got to be slamming their brakes and go, 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 go. All the gas and all the full power there. It's going to be a very good launch from Paliqui. Already looking to make a move on the outside of Futaku here, heading into turn. Futaku again blinking, so it's going to be putting Paliqui not in an easy position to try and get around there. It looks like everybody made it through nice and clean through these first couple corners here, with again Katie Timberfox leading this whole pack here with those huge sprays right behind them. Going to be blinding Futaku and Paliqui, everybody else behind them, but looks like no incident here so far. Paliqui trying to just get as close as possible to those cars here, but there's going to be no overtaking chance here right so far. But it's going to be a deep dive on the brakes here for Newbie, but it's going to be a bit too wide, I think, because that's going to be getting an opportunity for Giando to get right behind Newbie. There's going to be a fight, a drag race heading into the long back straight here. It's going to be also Beschetti and all the cars right behind them as well. We also see a couple of cars spun around there at the background there. We're going to keep that watching on later, but it's not going to be Futaku. Deep on those brakes there with Katie trying to take that defensive inside there, but I think there's not going to be quite as much structure here. It's going to be Futaku through. Futaku's through into P1. That's an amazing move there.
Yeah, absolutely amazing move as we head into out of Revolver and into Piper. It looks like this battle is going to make things very hard for Pally to get around. As you can see, another three-way fight. That's Philip Beckervold in the worst spot possible. There's 4 drivers ahead of them, and they're all sandwiched in the most opportune spots. It's going to make things so much harder for Beckervold to make a move heading out of Redmond and into Hobbs. They're trying their best, but there's no room going. Looking now at the main straight, it looks like Beckervold's just going to have to settle in and try again this next lap.
They're going to have to keep patient here because there's no place for them to get around anywhere here. But it looks like Philip Beckervold got themselves a really good exit on the last corner here. They're going to be right on the rear bumper for Futaku, but there's going to be a Katie Timberfox under threat from Paliqui Grant there heading into the first quarter there. It looks like a washing out wide on that corner here. There's also going to be a dive from Inigo Lopez into the first corner here, pushing out the Moonstar Aldanis, I believe, right there. There's going to be side-by-side battle between Katie Timberfox and Paliqui Grant. They're heading into the Moss S here. It's going to be bumping doors, touching mirrors. They're going to be keeping themselves just barely ahead of the Bluey Racing driver here, but they're going to be now on the inside line heading into Atwood Curve there, trying to get that best exit possible here. Looks like they still are just about trying to squeeze behind them and just use that slipstream to try and make another move there. Looks like Katie Timberfox is just occupying the middle of the road here, just forcing Palico Grant to try and make that on up to outside line there, but looks like Philip Becker would also try to make a move on the inside line there with Futaku trying to just squeeze them on the inside, but that's going to be back into Valico. Again, trying to make that move happen there, but there's going to be no space. Katie Timberfox driving amazingly defensively, just keeping Palico right behind them.
Katie doing everything she can to hold Paliqui back. It's also opened the door for Kiyondo, who's right there. This is probably the best thing you want for Katie, because she now has a teammate sandwiched between them. So that means Pally is in a much...
Yeah, racing driver. I'm going to have to correct you right there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought they were.
They're in Cabal, but anyway, that's going to be Katie Timberfox again trying to defend from Palico Grant. They didn't get the best possible exit as possible here, but they're still going to be staying ahead, heading into the last quarter here. It's going to be now no slipstream for Katie, but it's going to be a huge slipstream for Palico Grant. They might have another chance at an overtake heading into the main straight, into the first quarter here, but I don't think the gap is quite there, so it's going to be Palico probably slotting themselves behind Katie, just hoping for another opportunity, maybe after the Moss S into the Atwood Curve there. Looks like the gaps are slowly increasing here, but it also looks like Philip Becker is still stuck behind Nupi, Panu Seaton, and Van Fiebel and everybody else there in the background there, so they're going to be still fighting hard for that. We're going to be keeping our eye on Palico Grant there, but going to be switching now over to Philip Becker, but now trying to still chase down Newbie, actually. I think they got themselves around Tupi and Nico Lopez earlier part of the track here. They're going to be actually a very unusual outside dive into the corner here, trying to maybe get themselves a better setup for the exit into the main straight here. It looks to be working quite well for Beckerbolt here, so because they're right behind Newbie here. They're going to be Newbie forced to take that defensive inside line there. They're not going to be defending it too hard. It looks like Beckerbolt just going to be diving deep into those brakes, into the hairpin corner that's going to be through, goes into Beckerbolt, into P7. There's going to be a couple more cars before they're going to be catching back up to Paliqui.
Yeah, that's not good for Paliqui, as they see Philip Beckervold trying everything they can to get around the field, and so far it's been pretty good, but you can see that Pally is still stuck behind Katie Timberfox. She's doing everything she can to try to keep Pally back, which is not very helpful for Pally, as we see, I believe that is, I don't know who that, I couldn't tell who that was, but oh, it was Juan V heading into the pit lane. Something must have happened. As we see now, Philip Beckervold, or I'm sorry, not Philip Beckervold, we see Paliqui Grant and Katie Timberfox looking to see if they can maybe make another go at it. You can see that it is bleeding so much time there, and it's kept Giando right there with them. So anything can happen. And what also has helped is the fact that Futaku has now been able to kind of run away from this and keep to themselves. We see another battle going on here. This is between Inigo Lopez and Valis Statera, and now heading into Atwood Corner. You can see that there's actually kind of a dry spot going into Atwood from the sun, and it almost looks like people lose a little bit of track as we see Pally going once again for that P2 spot. Look at how close Pally is. They just can't find the door to open, and Katie is doing everything she can to keep them behind, and it's really just not helping Pally at all.
Not helping Pally at all here, but Futaku is also not really getting away from this fight right behind them. So it looks like Katie and Palico both have a lot of pace left in their pockets here, with Futaku just desperately trying to get as much gap between them as possible. That's not going to be happening here. But you can also see those big puddles on the inside corner, so the drivers are going to have to be very careful about dipping your wheel into that puddle on the inside, because otherwise your car is going to be spinning around here. They're also going to be very ginger on the exit of Mike Knight into that last corner here to try and avoid those big puddles on the inside line there. They're going to be staying themselves nice and tidy here. I think Katie maybe lost a little bit of traction going onto that AstroTurf on the outside line there. Going to be given an opportunity for Palico just inch themselves closer and closer still, heading into turn one, that first quarter there. Again, to try to avoid those puddles on the inside of the line here. It's going to be nice and tidy. A much better exit for Palico before they going to be swinging themselves back into the left side into the Williams corner here. This could be the opportunity that Palico wants to finally get around Katie Timberfox. If they can just get close enough onto the Atwood curve there and just use that slipstream to make that send finally happen into the hairpin here. We're going to be seeing very closely here. Again, a very good exit an entry and exit from Palikui to get themselves even closer into Katie's rear bumper there. It's going to be gapped down into 2/10 before they head to the hairpin, so this could be the move they want.
This is absolutely what Palikui wants. Is it going to be enough, though, for them to make a move? You can see Katie taking the defensive line. Pally going in the outside line. They absolutely tried to do it, but it cost them too much. They go wide. It cost them way too much, and it cost them the position from Giando, and now Pally has 2 cars to pass.
That was the absolute last thing that Palik wanted. It looks like they just lost traction in the braking zone heading into the hairpin here, losing themselves that fight to Katie Timberfox and also the fight to Giando. But it looks like Giando is going to be assuming Paliku's position right there, saying thank you very much. Now it's going to be my turn to fight for the P2 spot here. But again, Futaku is not really making any much ground there in the end here, despite this whole fight happening right behind them. Now going to be Katie defending from Giando as well. Now they go down into Mike Knight into the last quarter. Looks like Giando's even closer than Palik was on those last couple corners. They're actually almost bumper to bumper heading onto the base right here, so this could be the opportunity that gets. Katie Timberfox actually no longer has slipstream from Futaku heading into the main straight here, so this could be Katie Timberfox very vulnerable. Giando is thinking about it. He's thinking about the move. They're going to be diving a little bit on the inside. They're trying to force Katie to take that up. That unoptimal outside line there, but no, Katie is holding strong. She's still holding on that advance there, but look, that's going to be Palikui also trying to think about making some moves into Giando there. Looks like Palikui got a massively better exit into the Williams quarter here. They're going to be chasing them down into the Moss. There's going to be going side by side, I think, into Atwood, but no, they're going to be slowing themselves behind. They're going to be waiting for another chance at the hairpin.
Yeah, absolutely. They tried. It looks like they caught a little bit of grass going into the Moss S's, which cost them a little bit of traction. Now heading out of Atwood, it looks like Pally once again got a much better launch going out of Atwood. You can see that they're right on the rear bumper of Giando. Are they going to try to make a move on the outside? It looks like they're thinking about it. They're right on the bumper of Giando. You can see that they're almost touching. They're pushing Giando through the hairpin, trying to get a move done. As you can see, they're entering Revolver now and heading into Piper. It looks like it's just Katie's been just the giant bottleneck. She's been doing everything she can to kind of keep these two at bay, and it's working to perfection.
It's working to perfection. That's also going to be Beckavold swinging themselves into the inside of Redmond corner here, getting themselves through Paschetti there. That's going to be now Beckavold in P6. Only one car separating them and their big rival Palikui Grant here. So this is going to be extending that gap they have to Palikui Grant here. With each car they overtake, and they don't even need to get around Palikui at this point. They just need to be sending themselves like one car behind Palikui, who is again just trying so hard to get around Giando and Katie Timberfox, but that's not going to be happening. They're still not making any progress there. So this is going to be the best spot for Philly Becko that they don't need to be pushing that hard. They just need to stay right behind so they can just extend that gap.
Yeah, exactly. And all they need to do is they've got one car ahead of them, and it's Sarah von Vieplin. So that will because poor Sarah is out in no man's land at this point. She's really got no one to help her. And you can see this fight is just getting more and more intense. I'm wondering what Futaku is thinking right now, because they probably know that if Pally gets by these two, there's nothing that they can do to get around it. But you can see now Giando's on the outside line, Katie Timberfox on the inside. You can see that they make an amazing dive, but it's way too wide and it's cost them way too much. They're similar to what Pally did earlier, and it's opened the door for Pally. You can see they come out of Piper. They were able to get both cars in the complex there, and now all they need is one more driver, and that is Futaku. And that is probably the best thing that Pally could have asked for, was that absolute send by Giando, because it has opened the door for P1.
Finally, a stroke of luck for Palikui after the misfortune they suffered in race 1. That's going to be only Futaku left. They're going to be already right in their rear bumper heading into the last quarter here. This could be already an overtake in this quarter here after they already went around Giando and Katie Timberfox here. Giando seems to have just gone way too optimistic on that dive on the outside line there. I think they may have dipped a wheel on the grass there, which is why they lost traction and got over onto the escape on the gravel on the back of the hairpin there. But no overtake for Palikui yet there. But there's going to be much more distance left between them and Futaku. Futaku has just been trying their best to try and get away from this back there, but they just don't have the pace needed to just extend this gap as much as they want. I think they also made a mistake at some point because the gap shrunk down from 1.5 seconds to just half a second here. Now going to be there under assault from Palico, who's also thinking about making a move there. Futaku trying to go on that defensive inside line heading into Atwood corner there, but that's going to be compromised at their exit, which could be giving an opportunity for Palico to make a cutback, and it's going to be a cutback. They're going to be going side by side. It's going to be a drag race down the back straight here under that Lexus side here. It's going to be Palico with that better inside line here. Futaku is just trying to maybe squeeze them a little bit on the outside, but there's not going to be much that Futaku can do at this point. It's going to be Palico deep on those bricks at the inside. Futaku trying to carry the moment on the outside, but no, they're going to be bullied outside. That's going to be Palico through in P1. That's going to be now the best possible chance for Palico to just get away, run away, get that win.
Run, Pally, run. At this point, all you've got to do is just keep the pace up because Philip Beckevold now has 3 very feisty cars in front of him. So that's going to make things so much harder for Philip Beckevold to make this move. But you know what? It's not just 3 cars, it's 4 cars. Look at who's joined the party. That is Sarah Von Fiepelen in the RNG car with, I believe that is Guiando in front of her. So it is going to be very interesting for Philip Beckevold because these 4 cars have been fighting so hard. Look at how hard Palico had to fight just to get into the lead. I don't think Philip Beckevold's going to get it any easier.
Fighting tooth and nail and claw and talent for these positions here, with now Sarah Van Fiepelen joining this 4-way fight here. We also see Palico Granted immediately getting the fastest lap of the race here with a 36.8 as soon as they got into that clean air here. You can just see how much they were being held back by these 3 other cars behind them. So that's not going to be any easier for Philip Beckevold to also get around there. That's going to be Katie Timberfox trying to defend from Guiando's drive there, but they are going to be late on those bricks. They're going to be using their apex exit here, which is going to be giving an opportunity for Guiando to make a cutback move here to try and get around, but it's going to be that slipstream from Futaku helping Katie Timberfox to stay ahead, so there's not going to be no change in position yet here, but they're going to be all on the middle of the road here. Everybody trying to vie for that best position to make that dive happen into the hairpin corner here, but no, nobody's making those moves yet happen. But the more they fight, you can see Sarah Van Fiepelen is in the fight here, and the more they fight, that's going to be also Beckevold joining this fight here. There's going to be a 5-way battle for P2.
5-way battle for P2, and I predict that's probably, given Beckevold time, that'll probably be within the next few, like maybe 2 or 3 laps. As you can see, Beckevold right there coming out of Piper to this massive fight. You can see Newbie behind trying to slowly gain on, I believe this Pano Saitanen heading into Redmond, and that's going to make things very hard for the other RNG driver as we go back now to this fight. This is between Katie Timberfox and Guiando. Oh man, that almost looked like contact there going out of the last quarter, but they were able to save it. You can see that Pally is going deep on the main street. I think they're just trying to find a wet line now. As you can see that the track is slowly but surely drying off. That's going to make things a little bit interesting for everyone because they're all on wet tires, and now that the sun is out, it's slowly but surely drying the certain sections of the track, which makes things very hard when you're on wet tires.
Absolutely, indeed, the track is drying out, so there's not going to be any more of that wet water to cool down these tires. So you can see Palico, I think it was also Newbie in the earlier part of the lap here, getting off the racing line here to get back onto the wet line here. But that's going to be Palico and not Palico. It's going to be Guiando and Katie Timberfox side by side onto the back straight here, with both trying to get that draft from Futago here, trying to get ahead of each other here. But it looks like Guiando's going to have that opportune inside line here to make a dive happen. There's going to be also Sarah Van Fiepelen right in the background. They're trying to make a move also happen around Katie Timberfox. It's going to be Katie Timberfox just clinging onto the outside there. That's going to be Mel turning into the inside, hitting into the double left-hander of Revolver and Piper. Guiando just trying to desperately cling along here with also Sarah Van Fiepelen right in the background there, but it looks like Katie Timberfox just does not have the traction they needed to stay ahead of Guiando. They're going to lose that position to Guiando. That's going to be down trying to defend from their other female racing driver. That's going to be Sarah Van Fiepelen right behind them. But no, they're going to be pushing. No, they pushed too hard. They pushed into Guiando. They're going to be forced to spin around wide. But this is going to be the exact thing that Philip Beckevold needs, because now they lost all that speed, all those positions to the other car ahead. Now it's going to be Beckevold up in P5. Now only 3 cars left to go.
3 cars left to go, but at this point, the damage may have been done. This 5-way fight has now turned into a 2-way fight, and now Philip Beckevold really has the open door, but they've got a lot of ground to gain to try to catch up to Paliqui. But now you can see Guiando on the inside, Sarah Van Fiepelen on the outside, Philip Beckevold trying to find a gap in the middle. no time, no place going. As you see, Philip Beckervold just trying to find a spot, looking anywhere he can to make a move, but can do it now. Heading into the S's. Is there going to be anything going here? No, but it looks like Sarah Von Vlieben may think something. They would go on the inside. They were trying to make a move on Guiando, but we're not able to do it. Here we go, heading out of Atwood. Looks like heading down the main straight. Anything could go. You can see Guiando slowly but surely pull away, but that just opened the door for Philip Beckervold. They're right on the bumper of Sarah Von Vlieben. Von Vlieben holding the inside line to try to defend against Philip Beckervold, but that's going to be very advantageous for the next corner. So it looks like Philip Beckervold's going to send it on the outside, trying to make a move on the inside. They're going to slam the door on Sarah Von Vlieben and slide into the middle of them. Now they've only got one driver to go.
There just doesn't seem to be any traction on that hairpin inside line there, which gave Philip Beckervold the opportunity to just carry all that momentum on the outside and get ahead of Van Vliet here. So the dry line and wet line is definitely causing a lot of havoc to our drivers here. They just don't know what line to take there. It's going to be all down to just feeling the car, knowing which line to take there. It looks like Beckervold has the better run of them, but it's going to be now Katie Timfox joining a fight with Banu Seaton and trying to get back a couple of positions they lost from that contact they had with Guiando there. But yeah, no change in position so far here. We also see Nibi in the background just trying to join this fight as well here. That's going to be Baschetti trying to take a pretty tight inside line here on this little section here before heading onto the main straight here. I think that both of these cars are going to be heading off that dry racing line here, trying to cool their tires down on that wetter outside line there, with Katie right behind them trying to use that draft as possible. It's going to be a big dive. It's going to be a huge send into turn one. That was the amazing dive. Baschetti trying to cling a rod into their background into the wilderness corner here, but no, Katie Timfox just made a massive send into that corner here. What a move!
Absolute if gap car move right there. She just sent it, and it worked out perfectly. Let's see that again, because that was absolutely insane. Here we go, Katie on the outside. She's trying to, it almost looks like she thinks about it, and then for whatever reason just says, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna send it, and it works perfectly. It almost went into the tears, but they were able to save it just barely. As we follow along now with Katie again, you can see that it's also opened the door for Newbie to catch up, as we see another fight going on. This is Toombi and Inigo Lopez heading out of Piper. It looks like Toombi was able to get the move done as we head now into Redmond.
Honestly, looking at that replay again from Katie's overtake, I think that may have not been 100% intentional. I think it could be that Katie got caught up by just how early Baschetti was breaking into turn one, so they just made that huge dive on the inside and somehow made it stick in the end. So I think maybe not 100% intentional, but an overtake is an overtake, so they're going to be reaping those rewards. You're trying to get away from Baschetti, Paducita, to try and catch up back up to Van Vliet and maybe Guiando as well here, because now it's going to be a fight between Guiando and Philip Beckervold. It's going to be this important fight because Philip Beckervold and Guiando have also caught up to Futaku, who's going to have to defend from these two extremely fast and extremely competent racing drivers right behind them. As the track is drying out, the lines are changing every lap, so they're going to be trying to maybe take those wet lines to try and cool those tires down as much as possible, while also trying to defend from the assault from these two cars here. Looks like it's working so far for Futaku here, but Guiando's going to be slowly into themselves closer. Looks like a very good exit from Guiando heading onto the main straight, so they're going to be using that slipstream to their advantage, trying to get as close as possible to Futaku. Both of them going on that very tight inside line there. Guiando following Futaku there. There's not going to be any opportunity for Guiando to try to dive up on the inside, but no. Futaku again swinging out wide on the outside, trying to take that bit of an outside line there to carry that momentum, and it seems to be working there. Guiando is just not finding any way through Futaku.
Yeah, no going so far. You can see they go a little bit wide going out of Piper to set, or out of Revolver to set themselves up for Piper. You can see again they go wide going into the straight on their way to Redmond. You can see that also, I'd like to point out, Philip Beckervold has not really gained a lot of time on these two drivers. It's been inching closer and closer, but not enough to be on the back bumper. It's gotten close, but not close enough. And you can see Sarah Von Vliet just sitting behind Philip Beckervold, but again, the gap is opened up, and the other gap that's opened up is between Futaku and Palica Grant. The gap is now 3 seconds because Pally now has open air and has just been pulling away from the entire field.
Pulling away indeed, but it's not going to be enough because Philip Beckham is still already in P4. So even if they finish in these positions right now, Philip Beckham is going to be extending their points gap in the championship by several points here. But all of that Palico can do right now is just try to get as far away as possible, just try to keep that P1 there to minimize the points they had lost in that early first race 1 spin here. We can see, Futaku made a little bit loose on the curb there, on the SS there, to kind of lose a bit of traction, and now going to be losing them even more traction as they try to get that wide outside line. They're trying to prioritize carrying momentum as opposed to Gianni just diving out on the inside, trying to get as good of an exit as possible there. Again, they're going to be in that tight inside line there, heading onto the back straight there with Giando following through. It's going to be Giando trying to make a move on the outside there to try to carry the momentum through, but there's not going to be quite enough space there. But no, it's going to be Futaku really deep on the outside line there. They're going to be losing all that traction. It's going to be giving an opportunity for Giando to get right up alongside, door to door, heading into the double left-hander, into Revolver, into Piper, but Futaku still managing to defend just about on the inside, but no, it looks like Giando managed to get that, carry that momentum through. They're going to be again side by side, but no, they're going to be getting clear through. Goes Giando into P2. That's going to be an amazing move from Futaku. Now going to be down to Futaku trying to defend from Philip Beckham, but that's probably not going to be happening for long because, but no, there's also Van Viepen in the background right there as well, so this could also be mixing up the pack.
Yeah, it's now turned into a four-way fight. Philip Beckevold in the middle of this. As you can see, Sarah Van Viepen has now caught up to Philip Beckevold, and maybe she'll think about making a move here, but so far it's been very interesting. This little fight has now caused Giando to start pulling away, but Philip Beckevold is still behind Futaku as they try to make a move on the inside, but Philip Beckevold won't have any of it. They now close the gap even more. You can see Sarah Van Viepen is now right on the bumper of Philip Beckevold. You can see that she's trying to maybe make a move anywhere. If there's anything that she can do, she'll probably try to find it, but right now you can see Futaku is taking a very defensive line, trying their best to keep Beckevold back.
They're also trying to take those outside lines to try and keep those tires down there because there is no rain falling on the track here. So the more laps they do, the drier the track gets, and the worse those wet tires are going to be becoming. So they're just trying to find every patch of wet asphalt as possible all around the track to try and keep those tire temperatures in check here. Looks like Giando and Beckevold. No, it's going to be Giando again losing the traction on the outside line. They're giving an opportunity for Futaku to try to make a send on the outside, but no, get it just about matched to stay ahead and close that door again. So all of our drivers are just struggling for traction at the moment here with only 5 minutes of the race to go.
5 minutes left of this race, and Beckevold really at this point just needs to kind of hold out where they are to gain the lead. As we can see now, Beckevold almost pushing Futaku along as Giando once again starts gaining time away from this little fight here between Futaku, Beckevold, and Sarah Van Viepen heading out of the last corner. You can see Beckevold has a much better run going out of the corner, but you can see Futaku taking the defensive line on the inside, but it's very deep on the inside. This may be, even though it's for the tires, it may be too much. You can see Beckevold going outside, they touch! Going out of the first corner, and it's caused Philip Beckevold to get very loose, and it's opened the door for Sarah Van Viepen to get right on the back bumper of Philip Beckevold. And now, heading out of Williams, Sarah Van Viepen is right on the tail of Philip Beckevold. Is this going to be the move?
Not quite yet. We see gotta be Viepen trying to get as good of an exit as possible, with Philip Beckevold also trying to get as good of an exit as possible to use that slipstream off Futaku and just try to make that move send happen there. Giando has now exited this fight here. They're over a second clear from Futaku, so that's gonna be much of a chance for Futaku make that move happen here. But it's gonna be Beckevold trying to think about that move on the inside. But you can see Futaku is still blinking, so that's gonna be making everyone nervous and loose because getting a bit too close to Futaku, they could just have netcode hit them. So I think Philip Beckevold is probably not pushing as aggressively as they normally would to try and get around Futaku from fear of getting netcoded here. But they're still going to be chasing right behind them, trying to maybe catch up to Giando as well.
Looks like they're sending the inside here.
But no, it's going to be a send on the inside. It's going to be them going side by side on that hairpin here with Giando. With Beckevold there, just about getting the momentum through and shutting the door on Futaku. So there's going to be one car down and only one car left to go before they're going to be in P2.
Yeah, one car left to go, and it is Giando. We'll see how well this goes because because they pulled away, they kind of set themselves up to be put in the middle of nowhere, really, against Philip Beckevold. They don't really have anything to fight against them. As you can see, he's slowly pulling away from this pack. As you can see, Futaku, right as I say that, Futaku once again trying to make a move here. They're right on the bumper of Philip Beckevold as they sit on the inside of heading out of Williams. You can see also Sarah Von Vieplin sitting right there as well, trying her best to try to stay with this little fight here as Philip Beckevold staying on the outside, Futaku on the inside, trying to go for a little bit of a move here, but they went a little wide. That may cost them a lot of time going out of the corner, heading out of Atwood. As you can see, Beckevold now has a much better launch heading out of the hair, on their way to the hairpin.
Yeah, it looks like we have very good launch from Futaku and from Viplant here to try and get back up into Beckevold's rear bumper there, but no change in position so far. It looks like Van Viplant is getting really close, and they're gonna dive! They're gonna dive into Revolver corner there, pushing Futaku wide there. They're gonna then squeeze their way through into the Piper hairpin, so that's gonna be a very opportunistic dive from Viplant here trying to get away, but no, Futaku's going to be making a cutback. They're going to dive again into the hairpin. There's going to be again almost touching towards brushing bumpers here, but no, Futaku couldn't get the momentum through. There's going to be an amazing dive from Viplant. They're just getting themselves through into P4 now to chase down Beckevold to hopefully get that P3.
Hopefully that would be opportunistic, but they've got she's got a large gap. Philip Beckevold also has a little bit of a fair big gap to Guiando, with only 3 minutes left. So at this point, what do? Do you try to push and try to go for that P2, or do you just sit back? Because I've got the points. I don't need to worry about anything at this point. All I need to do is just survive. And so far, surviving they have. Paliqui has a 6-second gap between them and Guiando. So at this point, it's just Pally's race to lose and Beckevold's race to get P2. So we'll have to wait and see as we follow along with Sarah Von Vieplin trying her best to catch up to Philip Beckevold.
Let's try not to curse Paliqui again for this race here. But yeah, Guiando seems to be keeping that gap within about a second here compared to Philip Beckevold. So it could be that from all this fighting of Beckevold trying to get through the whole grid there, they just don't have the traction left in their tires to catch up to Guiando again here. But we have a couple of minutes left to go to see if there's going to be a change in those positions. But there's going to be a fight, Brew. There's going to be a fight happening between Banu, between Newbie, between Toombi, between Katie, and Inigo Lopez as well. There's going to be a 5-way battle for P6 here. We're going to be seeing Toombi trying to get right into Newbie's rear bumper here. But Newbie shut the door on them on the exit of Piper there, so they couldn't make that move to happen here. But they're going to be you can see they're just sweeping on the track left and right, trying to get those tires on those wet parts of the track here to keep their temperatures in check there. Everybody's going to be suffering from a lack of traction just from those tires overheating and losing even more grip there. Going to be Toombi again trying to get that good launch through the second hairpin of Hobbs into Mike Knight into the last quarter here, but it doesn't look like there's going to be quite enough space to make that move happen here, and they lose a bit of ground there going onto those exits here. They're going to have to try to maximize those exits as much as possible into the last quarter. It's going to be now final lap, the one last chance for all of our competitors to make those moves happen here. You can see Pasquetti going really, really deep there to try and cool those tires down here into the last lap here, so anything could still happen.
Anything can happen. Anything can change. You can see that Newbie is right on the bumper of Pino Satanen heading out of into Williams, and Toombi is right there behind him. This could be anyone's fight. This is the last chance, last time heading out of Williams and into the Mosses, and our last time into Atwood. You can see Katie's got a fairly large gap. This will be probably the last chance to make any sort of move. You can see that Pino Satanen taking a little bit more of a defensive line, now heading on the inside, trying to keep those tires cool, heading into the outside. Here we go, heading on the inside. Is Newbie going to make a move here? They're close, but there's not enough gap. Heading into the hairpin, you can see they're right on the bumper of Pino Satanen, looking for a move, but they cannot do it. It's only a few corners left to go as we follow along now with this battle. Here we go out of Piper. Only a few corners left. Is there going to be a move made as we heading out of Redmond for the last time? Only 3 corners left. Is there going to be anything that these drivers can do?
There's not enough space, there's not enough time. That's going to be Paliqui Grant crossing the finish line in that first place. Guiando in second, Philip Beckevold in third. They were not able to make those moves happen there in the end, but they're both going to be very pleased with those results here. Going to go back into Toombi, to Newbie, to Inigo there. They get no changes in their position either here, so it's going to be a tight battle for the last lap here, but there's not going to be any change in position here. That's going to be Beckavold in 3rd, Van Fiebel in 4th, Futaku 5th, Katie Tim Fox 6th, Banu Sidon in 7th, Newbie 8th, Toombi 9th, Inigo Lopez 10th, running out of top 10. So very, very much fighting right at the end of the race here. There's going to be also Moontan Star Aldalis in P11, Velox Statera in P12, Matti Alkops out there having a little bit of a battle with Rupen Savage, and I think that's also Wannabe in the background there, trying to go for one last round around here. We also, I think at the early part of the race, we had a retirement from Neff and Fossi Tigris as well. So unfortunately, those two Tigan racing drivers are not going to be competing this second race here. There's going to be now Matti Alakopsa and Ruben Samic and Juanvi for one last time around the track here. It's going to be a bit of a weave there, actually, from both the cars here, but yeah, 1v is a lap down there, so they're going to be fighting for Matti Alakopsa directly. So that's going to be now, right in the back, that's going to be Ruben Samic, the final RNG racing driver there, crossing the finish line. That's going to be finishing our race here right at the end. So lots of good fighting, and it's going to be a very good win for Palico Grandia, but I think the championship has swung now into Beckavold's favor.
Yeah, it absolutely has. With that unfortunate incident in race 1 with Pally. But remember, we still have 2 races to go. So that means anything can happen. Pally might be able to crawl this back later on. We'll just have to wait and see.
We will have to wait and see, and with those 2 rounds, there's going to be 2 races in those 2 rounds, so there's going to be 4 races left, where all of those you can get a maximum of 25 points in each race, plus a lot for plus a point for a fastest lap here. So there's gaps are going to be any chances to get those points back here and gain back to the lead of the race here. You can see Palico doing those celebratory donuts on the main stretch here, so very much well deserved after a good fight in that second race to get through several cars here to get into P1. So very, very, very fun race for sure. But now that we're going to be heading to the end of our current race, we do have some more announcements to make here, because we have some more races coming up very soon. Because I'm very much happy to announce that starting not next week, but in a couple weeks' time, we're going to be having our very first LMP2 series. It's going to be the Simufur Prototype Challenge starting May 17th next month. So we'll have about a month's time. We're going to be driving with those very fun, unrestricted ELMS LMP2 prototype cars in Le Mans Ultimate. So this is going to be something you're all going to be having and very much fun to do next month.
This will be very exciting. I actually did some testing last night with these cars. It's a lot of fun. I am personally very excited, especially with the tracks that we have planned for this event. It's going to be very, very fun. This will also be our first LMU event in quite a while. I almost want to say it's been almost a year since we've done an LMU event. And
yes, last time around we had our Hypercar series that happened last year, and that was the last time we did any Le Mans Ultimate Racing. And yeah, second time around here, we're going to be learning a lot of things, and you're going to be seeing all of those lovely details on our Simufur Discord server. So if you're not in that Discord server yet, make sure to join that right now so you're going to get having all those fun details.
Yep, absolutely. We will be keeping you all updated with the details. And again, race 1 will be May 17th, and then it will be a 2-week break between that and race 2 due to I believe a con is going on then. And then we will be going on from there. So super excited. We're going to have some super exciting tracks going on for this event. So can't wait.
Can't wait indeed, but we still also have more racing to do in Porsche Cup, or in the Porsche Cup series. We have 2 more rounds to go. Next time it's going to be in the Portuguese track Algarve International Circuit, also known as Portimao. So make sure to stay tuned for that broadcast happening next week. But for now, we're going to be wrapping things up on here at Simufur. Thank you again for Wolfin Ravenloft joining me here in the commentary booth with me, Denak Kalmari, and with Maurer in the background in those cameras, making sure we see all those fun action around the track here. So that's going to be a thank you everybody from us for tuning in, and have a good day.